Hello there. Welcome to the Spread, NESN.com's Football Picks podcast. I'm NESN.com's Mike Cole, joined by Andre Khatchaturian, Ricky Doyle for Week 11. Wow. Gentlemen, how are we?
Oh, it's time's flying. I can't believe it's almost Thanksgiving next week.
Now that we have we've got the political discourse out of the way.
You did off camera.
Yeah, we had a scintillating conversation about the state of the world. It still remains less than desirable. I think that is the biggest takeaway from what we chatted
Mike,
about.
every night I look up at the sky, and for whatever reason, Mars is really close to the Earth this year. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah.
And it's just always just bright as hell. And I'm like, man, Mars looks like a good place to be right now.
They have football on Mars, though.
No, they don't. That's why we'll stay here on planet Earth.
All right. Yeah, and that's what we're here to discuss. We're here to discuss Week 11 in the NFL. We will give our against the spread picks for the three best games of the weekend, which actually is a misnomer this week, but we'll get into that a little bit more as we go. Do that. We'll do our locks and upsets, and then we'll leave. Maybe we'll get back to our conversation, and we'll try to fix the world in the process. It's great. If you're listening to this on YouTube, I guess you're also watching it. Feel free to head on over to iTunes or Spotify, search NESN's The Spread, subscribe, rate, review, download, and give us great reviews and tell us how awesome we are and how much joy this show has brought you in a really a joyless world that is 2020. With that being said, speaking of joylessness, Andre, how did we do last week?
We actually were pretty solid. It was pretty.
It felt like a good week, yeah.
Ricky, you were 7-6-1. You led the way. You continue to lead the way. Mike, you're Mike. I'm Andre. We were both 6-7-1, and so pretty standard week.
That is the most generic week, imagine.
Yeah, it sucks. Like I felt like I had a
push was the Arizona Buffalo game. We had it at 2 points.
Yeah,
and
there were two very controversial finishes.
That and Cleveland.
That and then the Houston game, Cleveland game. Being with the running out of bounds, that was a huge pain in the ass for some people.
Were we all three of us on the same spot on all of those?
I had the Browns and I had the Cardinals.
So did I. So we got screwed there.
We got screwed over. Yeah.
I benefited from the Texans one.
God damn it.
Well, that's why
there you go.
That was the difference.
There you go. Looking at it real quick here, favorites. Nice bounce back week for favorites. 8-5 against the spread. Home teams 8-5 against the spread. Underdogs 2-11 straight up. And it was a decent, over under is a coin flip 6-7 to the under. Let's see here.
It was the opposite, right?
What's that?
2 weeks ago, weren't the underdogs? Wasn't the sizable?
It was a bloodbath. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which has been.
I was going to course correct this past week.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's been par for the course this year too. Favorites 62, 82, and 2 against the spread for the entire year. The over is, still continues to be a good bet, 78, 65, and 3. But we are getting into the weather portion of our schedule, which is like something I noticed. I was lucky enough to see the forecast for Cleveland Sunday morning and jumped right on that under because it was like they had a weather delay for what looked like snow and wind. I guess.
That game ended before some of the other 1 o'clock games because it flew by.
Why did that game get delayed?
It was I think cold thunderstorms. I don't know.
That's the thing. I think like thunderstorms are the only reason to delay a game, and it just looked like it was hailing and windy. So like, yeah, we can't play.
So the only 2 underdogs to win were the Giants and the Patriots.
Sounds about right.
Interesting.
The Eagles suck. God, that is so bad. Although I almost picked the Eagles this week, and I think one of us might actually be on the Eagles. But we will get to that a little bit later in the show. Let's start with the 3 best games of the weekend. And I did kind of make a caveat at the beginning. I think the Thursday night game is a very good game this week that we will touch on a little bit later. But we've got the Cardinals and the Seahawks on Thursday. That probably would have been in our slate had that game been on Sunday. But we try to keep it to Sunday or Monday here just for timeliness. So we start Sunday afternoon, a game that has been flexed to 425. You got the Green Bay Packers coming off of a less than impressive win at home against Jacksonville, heading to Indianapolis, take on the Colts. Colts, the opposite of less than impressive, which I guess is impressive, on Thursday night in Tennessee, beating the Titans rather handedly. This game, very weird, opened recently, I think it was 2.5. The Packers were favored by 2.5, even maybe 3 in some spots. All of a sudden it's flipped. The Colts are laying 2.5 at home here. Total sits at 51. That's about a 4 to 6 point swing. Ricky, what's your take on this one as it stands right now? Because this line probably will shift again before kickoff.
Yeah, this is probably the most difficult of the 3 games that we're choosing this week. Hemmed and hawed over it a little bit, especially as you mentioned, Mike, with just given the optics coming off this past week with the Colts winning a big divisional game, the Packers struggling against the Jaguars.
Colts on extra rest too.
Extra rest. It's but for me, I'm sort of willing to throw out some of the Packers' struggles in that game against Jacksonville. Looking at the big picture, just the fact that they're finally healthy. I mean, I think this is really the healthiest they've been in a while. It feels like. I mean, past few weeks you're getting back Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones, and David Bakhtiari comes back. So I think we're reaching a point where Green Bay is going to find its stride a little bit. Obviously, this being a tough matchup, we've talked about the Colts, I feel like, a lot this season. I think all 3 of us in our agreement that we really like the Colts, especially on the defensive side. But the one thing about Green Bay is I don't think that they're going to be bullied at the line of scrimmage. I mean, this is a team that first in pass block win rate, second in run block win rate. So, I think they're going to be able to run the ball a little bit on that Indianapolis defense. And then I look at the Colts offense that, they sort of developed a little bit of an identity against Tennessee, I guess, but there were just way too many instances where Phillip Rivers was indecisive. They didn't finish some of their drives. And I just think you get into a game against a team like Green Bay, and that's going to hurt you a little bit. So I like the Packers in this one. Not sure what to make of that swing in terms of the spread, but I like the Packers to win this outright.
Regarding that swing, I almost guarantee that this is about a pick by kickoff, because I think once people see they can get points with the Packers, they're going to jump all over that and it's going to move the line again. Andre, what do you think?
I agree with you, Mike. And Ricky. I think the Colts' biggest strength is their rush defense, but in this case, who cares? The Packers are 7-2 this season, and they've only surpassed 100 plus rushing yards 4 times all year, and one of those games they lost. So obviously, running the ball isn't really a big factor in the Packers winning any games. And then you look at Indy's pass defense; they only allow 6.8 yards per pass attempt. But I still have faith in Aaron Rodgers. I think he's, you look at I think the game is going to be dictated by the quarterbacks here, because I don't think either team is going to run the ball really well. Packers are going to struggle against that Colts rush defense, and the Colts don't really run the ball at all. So when you look at the 2 quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers or Phillip Rivers, I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers. He's having a hell of a season. He doesn't turn the ball over at all. And I think Rivers, as you mentioned, Ricky, he's going to have those moments where sometimes he just looks confused, and he'll make a mistake here and there. And I think the Packers, especially if you're giving me points, I'll take them.
Yeah. I'm with you guys. It's weird. Like, if the Packers were laying points here, my first inclination was, before I even checked the line, was like, I'm taking the Colts just because it just feels like a better matchup. And I started digging into it, and obviously I saw, actually the Packers are getting points. I felt better about it. Ricky, to your point, Green Bay getting healthier. Jair, the one thing to keep an eye on is Jair Alexander does have a concussion. Didn't play last week. He's questionable this week, but if he goes, I like that a lot. Same thing with Kevin King, who's got a quad injury. So, I mean, if you're without your two of your best corners, that's not great. But, Ricky, to your point, they got Bakhtiari back. They got Christian Kirksey back, the linebacker. They might, I would imagine, get Alan Lazard back this week as well. So that's, the fact that they've been able to tread water this long with the injuries they've had in the last few weeks. I mean, going to San Francisco and playing the 49ers and that clown show helped, but they've done a nice job of kind of just stemming the tide there. Indy, talk about injuries. Jack Doyle got a concussion. He's still in protocol. And Kenny Moore, former Patriots great, Kenny Moore, he's got a rib injury. He's questionable. He's actually been pretty good. I think he's got a passer rating against of like 80. So he's been fairly efficient. So that's something to keep in mind as well, because I do think the Packers are going to want to throw the ball a ton here. If they try to run it a lot, that it's just not going to work. I'm not as bullish on their run attack or their prospects of having a success on the ground as Ricky is. I'm kind of starting to really dig into early down success rate. Packers top 10, both run and pass. 7th in pass, 7th overall. Indy's defense, 11th in the league against early down success rate against the pass, 3rd against the run. So I think the Packers should really come out and throw the ball, especially early in drives, and try to establish some rhythm there. Packers surprisingly good at limiting big plays, which has been, kind of like I said, it's a surprise. Like, it just feels like that defense isn't great. In Indy, that has been one of their calling cards. So if the Packers could take away that big play potential, I think that bodes well for them. Let's see. Green Bay's got a very good red zone offense, 4th in the NFL, and I think Indy surprisingly pedestrian, 19th. So there's just a lot of advantages there. Plus, I think there's a huge advantage at quarterback, Andre, as you mentioned. Green Bay, very good on 3rd down as well. Indy, terribly offensively on 3rd down. So if the Packers can win early on drives, I think they can force a lot of punts. I also think here, this is anecdotally, I read some stories. Phillip Rivers historically has struggled against zone coverage. The Packers, almost to a fault, play a ton of zone. They've deployed dime defense more than any other team in the league this year. So they love, like I said, to a fault. Like, they'll 3-man rush when they have no business 3-man rushing, but maybe that'll help them this week. There was one thing last week, and there's going to be some issues. I know, talking way too much about the Packers, but like, the Packers came out, I think it was that 4th down late in the game against Jacksonville. After getting burned with a 3-man rush early in the game, they came out with a 3-man rush. Matt LaFleur called timeout, and then they came back out with a 4-man rush. So I think even he's like, Mike Pettin, you got to cut the crap. So, but like I said, maybe that helps them this week with Phillip Rivers, who has struggled historically against zone defenses. I don't know. Chuck it a ton if you're the Packers, and just let Aaron Rodgers go wild, especially if Allen Lazard's back, who's one of the more underrated receivers in the game. And if you can get Marquez Valdez-Scantling going, I mean, they're going to be – the Packers could be an issue. So, also one other thing too, as noted by a friend of the program, Odd Sharks, Joe Osborne. I don't know if he knows he's a friend of the program, but he is. Packers 12-0 against the spread in their last 12 games after against the spread loss. They failed to cover last week, so this is a good bounce back spot for them.
Okay.
Well, should be a good. What's that, Ricky?
I said, well said. Well said.
Should be a good game. I'm looking forward to it.
There's one thing there's something about the Colts that is preventing me from going all in on them. Maybe it's the quarterback play. I don't know. It's just, they feel like a team
quarterback play, yeah.
That's sort of, there's a finite ceiling on what they're going to be able to do this year.
How are they not better at running the ball with Jonathan Taylor?
Jonathan Taylor has been, I don't want to say a non-factor, but
he's been pretty much a non-factor, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Naeem Hines is obviously the guy in that backfield right now.
And that was a surprising thing once I started dig into that game, is that I was like, oh, wow, they actually don't run the ball as well as I thought they did. I thought they were going to have a huge advantage. And maybe this is the week they put it together and just run it down the Packers' throat, but it's just something they haven't done this year at all. So.
No.
Minor breaking news as we were going on from the baseball world. Theo Epstein has just resigned as the head of the Cubs.
Wow.
Very interesting. So that's our baseball minute. Let's go to
We'll talk about that once we wrap this up.
Yeah, we'll see how that
goes. With politics, and we'll end with baseball.
Maybe he goes to Philly. I don't know. Who knows? Sunday Night Football. An interesting one in the NFC West. You got the Kansas City Chiefs coming off of their bye, heading to Las Vegas, take on the Raiders. Chiefs right now coming off their bye, 8-1, laying 6.5. Raiders 6-3, coming off a rout of the Broncos. Getting points at home, total very high here between two very good offensive teams, 56.5. These two teams met in Week 5, and the Raiders kind of took it to the Chiefs at Arrowhead. So we've got a little bit of maybe of a revenge game here, and this is also one of the more cliche betting trends in all of football. Andy Reid off of a bye. Andre, who do you have in this one?
So again, I said before this show started, all the games are tough to pick this week, including this one. And I'm looking at that what was it, Week 5?
Yeah,
the Raiders beat the Chiefs. They had 2 deep touchdowns in that game. They really beat the Chiefs with the deep ball. And now the Chiefs' pass defense has really improved this season. They're third in coverage grade on Pro Football Focus, and they've allowed the third fewest yards per pass attempt. I think they've really fixed that. I don't see that happening again, where they're going to allow these deep, big plays, explosive plays. So I think they really, their Chiefs' pass defense is going to mitigate Derek Carr, and this might be the first time I've used the Chiefs' defense as a reason why I'm going to pick them in the game. Obviously we look at the Chiefs' explosive offense. They can score at any part of the field, any moment. But you look at the Chiefs' rush defense. You talked about how good their pass defense is. Their rush defense is still weak. They allow the fourth most rushing yards per game, and Josh Jacobs is fourth in rushing yards this year. But I don't think that's going to be an issue because I think the Chiefs are going to get on top early and force the Raiders to play from behind. And what else was I going to say? Yeah, the Chiefs' offense. I don't know what I was going with this, but I'm taking the Chiefs.
All right, that's good enough for us. Yeah, two things about that Week 5 matchup was that it felt a lot like Kansas City was a little bit complacent in that game, especially at the jumping out to an early lead. I think they thought they were in total control, and next thing you know, they're behind by 2 possessions. So there was it felt a little bit like complacency set in. And that was also, we touched on it the following week, that was a classic look-ahead spot for Kansas City as well, because they had Buffalo coming up right after that. So I think they got caught with their guard down a little bit. I think KC's antennas is going to be up from start to finish in this one. I think just generally speaking, when it comes to the Chiefs, my feeling is that you usually need to find a reason to not pick them. In other words, I tend to inherently lean Chiefs unless something jumps off the page. And, one could argue that that's been a fairly sound betting strategy, given their against the spread success, really since Patrick Mahomes has taken over as the starting quarterback. It's been especially rewarding in divisional games, which the Chiefs have dominated under Andy Reid. Mike, you mentioned the trends of Andy Reid coming off a bye and how good he's been. I believe it's 18-3 straight up in his career coming off a bye. So, I mean, this is just a lot of factors in that regard leaning in Kansas City's direction. And then from a matchup standpoint, I guess I'm not yet sold on the Raiders defense. I think this is a game where a lot of points are going to be scored. You mentioned Josh Jacobs and the ability for Las Vegas to run the ball. I think that's going to be there. But, I mean, I just look in this Raiders team, 32nd in tackling on Pro Football Focus. They don't generate much of a pass rush, 29th in sack percentage. They've had issues in the secondary. The coverage isn't great. Obviously, that's, makes them extremely vulnerable against the Chiefs passing attack. Run defense isn't great either. I just think this is going to be a tough spot for Vegas to slow down Kansas City's offense. And Mike, you mentioned that revenge factor. I don't think that their little victory lap around Arrowhead Stadium sat well with anybody, especially Andy Reid. So
yeah, and one more thing I was going to add before I had a stroke and forgot what I was going to say was the Raiders defense. They've had their moments, but they've struggled against good quarterbacks. They've allowed 300 plus yards to Mahomes, Breeze, Herbert, and Brady this year. So obviously they're going up against Mahomes again. So good chance the Raiders trail in this game and go away from that run attack that could actually be a strength against the Chiefs' weak rush defense.
There you go. Yeah, I think for me, I just need to see it from the Raiders this week before I buy into them a little bit more.
Give me the Chiefs. I'm with you guys. Like I just don't see where the stops come from the Raiders. It's one of those things too where they were able to run the ball very well, as one of you guys mentioned in Week 5. You get too far behind here, and that's going to be an issue. And you look at as mentioned, they can't generate pressure on the quarterback. And like Pat Mahomes has been weirdly mortal this year against pressure. He's completing fewer than 50% of his passes when he's under pressure. 86.5 passer rating under pressure. I mean, everybody plays worse when they've got bodies in their face. But if you just let him sit back there, somebody's going to get open, or he's going to take off, or both, and it's just going to be bad news. The Raiders, I think you can get them on big plays, but you can also kind of take them apart. They rank 31st in defensive yards per drive, 31st in defensive points per drive. They are dead last in defensive drive success rate. By the way, Chiefs second in the league net drive success rate, so they've been good on both sides of the ball. Andre, to your point, they've been like sneaky good defensively, especially against the pass. So again, I just think this comes out to like you can get a big lead early on them and make the make the Raiders one-dimensional, this is going to get ugly, I think, fast. I do think the more I look at this, I think the Chiefs win this in a rout. And I do, Ricky, you stole my thunder a little bit. The victory lap thing is very interesting. After that Week 5 game, the Raiders, according to whoever, did a victory lap around Arrowhead Stadium in the bus. Andy Reid mentioned it, kind of alluded to it, or was asked about it. It didn't seem very happy. And then John Gruden was asked about it.
What exactly was the victory lap, and is that something that you think about this week as far as bulletin board material or anything like that?
Not really. I mean, you can find a smart aleck bus driver in Kansas City who made some snide comments when we got on the bus. Maybe that's why we drove around the stadium, just to tick him off. You know, this is ridiculous. Next question.
That's something. It's stupid and it has nothing to do with things, but I think it maybe actually kind of does. Where I think that's just add motivation to it. Nice little divisional game here. Oh, to that point, this is also from Joe Osborne at Oddshark. Chiefs 14-3 against the spread in their last 17 divisional road games. So good value.
Yeah, just the Chiefs in general have been a cover machine for the better part of 3 years now. So it's just, and there's nothing about this matchup that leads me to believe that the Raiders should cover, let alone win. Like, I guess there's a path to victory. I mean, if they're able to run the ball, you know, maybe test the Chiefs' tackle.
Yeah.
There is, we should mention that there is some uncertainty with the Chiefs' offensive line. I mean, Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz both put on the COVID reserve list.
Sure, that's a big one, yeah.
So it sounds like that's probably a close contact situation and they'll end up playing, but I don't know if all of a sudden two of your starting offensive linemen are out, on top of the issues they already have from an offensive line standpoint, maybe that opens the door a little bit, but I don't know. It's hard to think that the Raiders, who at their very best are a poor man's Chiefs, are going to be able to keep up in this game.
Definitely.
Yeah, Chiefs have actually won 6 of their 8 wins have been by 2 or more possessions. Speaking of cover machines, they know how to blow teams out. I think this is going to be one of those situations.
This is totally like unrelated to this game, but I'm interested to see, like, as we get a few years into this whole Vegas thing with them being a franchise, like if there's any sort of trend or like what the trajectory is in terms of like line movement in their games, if they're like a legitimate contender, you know, like if they're going to all of a sudden start seeing a lot more action on their games by virtue of being based in Vegas and like those fans sort of gravitating towards that team and making a lot of bets on that team.
Yeah, you've seen that a little bit
impacting the numbers.
You've seen it a little bit in the NHL too. I mean, the NHL is a little bit different because you come in on a Tuesday to play on a Thursday, so you get to go out on Wednesday, you know, and then or whatever. And the Vegas flu comes in. I think that's not as big of an issue here, but yeah, I do think they turn into a real public team, especially in Vegas, and maybe that starts to change the lines a little bit. So always got to shop around. All right, Monday night. Another good one, potential playoff matchup. You get the Rams coming off of an impressive win against the Seahawks. They go to Tampa Bay to take on the Bucs. Bucs 3.5-point favorites here at home. Bucs coming off of their own impressive win against Carolina. Total set at 48.5 here. Bucs laying 3.5. Ricky, who do you got?
So the thing about the Rams is that they have the ability to pressure the quarterback without blitzing at a particularly high rate. And these teams have caused problems for Tom Brady in the past. I mean, I know it was with a different organization, but we've seen his struggles when you're able to apply pressure and sort of drop back in coverage. And the Rams pass defense has been excellent this season. So I just think that defensively the Rams can cause some problems for the Bucs offense. To those points, Rams 4th in sack percentage, despite blitzing, despite being 21st in blitz percentage. But they're 5th in pass rush, according to Pro Football Focus. A lot of that obviously due to the Aaron Donald effect. And Brady, among 35 quarterbacks with at least 100 dropbacks, he's 27th in adjusted completion percentage and 20th in passer rating when facing pressure. So, if you're able to flush to him a little bit, get him out of the pocket, I think there's an opportunity for Los Angeles to slow down Tampa Bay. So then, on the flip side, I look and is there an opportunity for the Rams offensively to move the ball? Because for as much as you can talk about the Rams defense, you could say a lot of the same things about the Bucs defense, which has been really good. And I do think that the Rams are going to be able to exploit the Bucs tackling a little bit. Maybe get the ball to their running backs and wide receivers in space. Bucs have allowed the most receptions to running backs this season, 7th most yards after the catch. So I just think this is a tough matchup for the Bucs, and we just saw them blow out the Panthers, but I do think this is a team that week to week you're going to see a lot of overreactions one way or the other. I'm getting points. I know it's on the road, but I like the Rams in this one.
Now look at these guys, Rams and Bucs. What's the Rams? What do the Rams love to do? They love to run the ball. They're 6th in rush attempts, but the Bucs are 1st in rush defense. They allow just 3.3 yards per carry. And on the other side of the ball, obviously the Bucs have all those offensive weapons, but the Rams allow the fewest yards per pass attempt. So it's so hard to pick this game because of that. But I agree with everything you said, Ricky, about Brady struggling against good pass rush against good pass defenses. The Rams have yet to allow a quarterback with more than 300 passing yards in the game, and that includes games against Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, and Russell Wilson. Dak Prescott had 1 million yards before he got injured. This Rams defense is really good. So, plus I'm getting points with the Rams. So for that reason, I'm going to take the Rams. I think if Tampa wants to win this game, they're going to need to. They lead the league in interceptions. They're going to have to pick off Jared Goff a few times in this game. But I just think it's harder to rely on forcing turnovers than just a consistently good pass defense, which the Rams have. So you're giving me points with that too. I'll take the Rams, but I'm not confident at all.
You guys are being very not disrespectful, but not even really paying attention to the Tampa Bay defense. And
I said I'm not confident at all. I know what the Tampa Bay defense is.
I'm taking the Bucs, and I think this has potential to be a blowout because I go back I can't get week 8 out of my head when it comes to the Rams, who same situation, went across the country to play a Florida team and got absolutely curb stomped by the Dolphins. And now a big part of that is if you put pressure on Jared Goff, you're going to have success against the Rams. Jared Goff under pressure this year, a 38.5% completion percentage, a 36.8 passer rating. You go back to last week, against Seattle, which Seattle can't generate a pass rush. So when he was clean, 25 of 35, 291, 106 passer rating. The few times they got after him, 2 of 6 for 11 yards and a 42 passer rating. You go back again, I talked about this last week even, that week 8 game against Miami, 9 of 22, 90 yards, 2 picks, no touchdowns, a 15 passer rating under pressure. It's not like he wasn't even hit when he threw. So that's just him being rushed and just making bad decisions. And so that's maybe where the turnovers come in, Andre, to your point. You also look at Tampa Bay generates the 3rd most pressure according to the pressure rates. And Rams' big injury on the offensive line, tackle Andrew Whitworth carted off last week. So you're going to be without him as well. I like the fact that I would imagine this is just a guess on my part. Bruce Arians sounded a little bit optimistic about getting offensive guard Ali Marpet back. He's the 5th ranked offensive guard in 2020 per Pro Football Focus. He's had a concussion. He's been out the last 2 weeks. You really saw that's when you start messing with the interior offensive line. That's where really it starts to hurt Tom Brady. That's always been the knock on him, right? Generate the pass rush up the middle, and that's where you have the best chance, especially if you got Aaron Donald coming to town. So if they get Marpet back, I like that there as well. So I just think the Bucs are going to have more success in the trenches, and I think that's a big difference here than anything else. I will say, though, this is an interesting little caveat. Tampa's been terrible in primetime this year. I don't know if either of you guys mentioned it. I was giving my wife my coffee order while you guys were talking. So, but 1-2 in primetime. Their only win coming, that uninspired win at the Giants. They're going to practice under the lights this week. Or not under the lights. They're going to practice inside. So, yes, technically under the lights, but they're practicing at night to try to get their internal clocks going. That's not a great sign. Neither is the fact that the Rams are 8-2 against the spread in the last 10 primetime games. Once again, thank you to Joe Osborne from Oddshot, who's basically
bring him on next week.
Doing all my.
I loved a lot of what you said. So I've done this many times.
Here we go.
Oh,
I've done this many times. I'm going to change
Sound
my
the
pick.
alarm.
I'm going to take the Bucs over the Rams. I wasn't confident with my Rams pick anyway, but I'm
Wow.
made a lot of convincing arguments. The pressure stats against Jared Goff is really what did me in. And I think you're going to get turnovers. If you pressure Jared Goff, you're going to have him make mistakes. And that's how I see Tampa Bay winning this game. That number is still too big, 3.5 points.
Yeah,
but you give Tom Brady a short field, I don't care who he's up against. He's going to get points.
So if this plays out the way that I think it will, what's the max amount of points that the Rams score here? 17? And so can Tom Brady and the Bucs get you to 21? I think so.
Yeah. No,
I think the Rams win outright, but because I think if the Bucs win this, they win in a blowout. It's hard for me to imagine it's going to be
within the number.
Yeah, the spread's not really driving my decision one way or the other.
I will say, I agree with you, but I also could see Tom Brady leading a game-winning field goal drive late or something, and just to win a game 20-17 or something like that. But yeah, Ricky, I agree with you. The under might be the play here, 48.5. That seems pretty high for.
Is Antonio Brown going to play?
Who?
Antonio Brown.
Sounds like it, as long as he doesn't get kicked out of his neighborhood, Tom Brady town. What a psychopath, by the way, with just beating the hell out of, or threatening to beat the hell out of people. Like I said, no wonder he's living with Brady. He couldn't get a good recommendation to get an apartment in Tampa.
Would that take 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Holy moly. Just a gutless statement too, by the way, from the Bucs. We're like, well, he's been great since we've had him here. It's like, well, that was never going to be the problem, you dinks.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Anyway, locks and upsets.
Andre, who'd you lock?
I'm gonna take the Patriots simply because Houston sucks against the run and New England loves to run the ball. They lead the league in rush attempts, average nearly 5 yards per carry, and Houston allows 5.2 yards per carry. And I just think we're gonna see one of those games where just New England controls the clock. They continuously run the ball against the crappy Houston team that doesn't know how to tackle and stop the run.
That one seems too obvious. It's wild.
Very obvious. That's why
it's
my lock of the week. Also, Patriots, you could say what you want about their defense. They're second in interceptions this year. Watson hasn't thrown a pick in 4 games, and maybe that changes this week.
J.C. Jackson a pick in 15 straight games or whatever. I think it's 6. Whatever.
Yeah.
Ricky, who'd you lock?
I might be leaning the other way with that one. This seems like an opportunity where the Patriots could get caught with their pants down a little bit.
It does feel like the entire world is going to be on the Patriots too.
Yeah, there's something weird about that game. I'm going to look at this devastating matchup between Washington and Cincinnati for my lock, and I'm going to take Washington, who's currently a 1-point favorite over Cincinnati.
I like that pick.
It just seems like a very bad matchup for the Bengals offensive line, which just got decimated by the Steelers. Washington's got the pass rush, obviously, good in coverage as well. So I think that they're going to cause some problems for Joe Burrow. Alex Smith's got another week back under him here, so you could probably actually didn't play that bad against Detroit, so you could see some improved performance there. Bengals, they're winless in their last 18 road games. They still have yet to pull out a victory on the road. 17-1 straight up. Just something to note. I think it's just a bad matchup all around for Cincinnati.
Joe Burrow was limping around late in that game last week.
Yeah, that was a tough afternoon for Cincinnati.
Yep. Give me. I'll go Thursday night for my lock. So this is a little bit unfair, but whatever. I'll take Seattle laying 3.5 at home against Arizona. I haven't plugged this one into the formula or anything. I am being completely upfront and transparent. This is 100% narrative driven, but literally everything points to Seattle, right? They need this game very badly to keep pace in the NFC West, which is just a complete.
Everything points to Arizona.
No, I think it all points to Seattle.
Oh, I don't agree with that, but okay.
Okay. The NFC West is a complete sweepstakes right now. They've lost. What have they lost? 2 in a row. They can't. They've struggled in the division. They need to win this. So you're at home. Good spot here. You got to win it. It's a revenge spot. I like that for Seattle. You got a Thursday night game with a young quarterback and a young coach who both, by the way, looked a little sketchy last week in that game against Buffalo. They did not do a very good job of closing out the Bills. And I think Arizona is very much primed for a letdown this week after winning at the buzzer last week. So Give me Seattle 3.5 in a game that they absolutely have to have right here on Thursday night. Ricky, who's your upset?
I like that narrative, Mike. You just look at Seattle's like they feel like they got things a little bit more buttoned up, just whether it's experience or whatever. But
right, yeah. But they may also not be very good, so that's a problem too. But
they'll put us up at some point. Upset my you mentioned this team at the top and how bad they are, but I am going to take the Eagles, currently 3.5 point underdogs over the Browns. One thing about the Eagles, they are getting a little bit healthier on the offensive side after being dinged up all season. Jalen Reagor came back, Miles Sanders back, Dallas Goedert's back. So I think that there's an opportunity there for them to find a little bit of a groove. Obviously, they got to get better quarterback play. But a lot of it stems from, I just think that I do think the Eagles will be able to run the ball. I think the Sanders return is big. But I also think the Browns, a lot of that was, their struggles offensively this past week were due to the conditions that you mentioned earlier, Mike. But I just think the Eagles' strength still resides along their defensive line, so they'll be able to slow down Cleveland's rushing attack to a certain extent. Browns also 4-14 straight up in their last 18 against NFC teams. So I just think this is an opportunity for the Eagles to sort of to bounce back and get right a little bit against a team that's been pretty much as inconsistent as it comes, even in their victories.
Browns stink.
Yeah, they're a whatever team,
All right.
They're 6-3. It's wild.
They stink.
I know.
It's what I mean. It's like a very underwhelming 6-3.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, Browns and Raiders, very underwhelming. My upset for the third straight week, I'm taking the Denver Broncos as my upset.
There you go.
This
Do
week,
you realize who their quarterback is?
Drew Lock.
He's so bad.
He threw 4 interceptions last game, but that's not why.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm picking the Broncos over the Dolphins. Broncos are 3-point underdogs. Tua Tagovailoa. What have I said about quarterbacks who've never been exposed to the cold weather before? Tua Tagovailoa has really never been exposed to the cold weather. It's one thing playing in Miami, and the one road game he had was in Arizona. Tua Tagovailoa is from Hawaii. He's going to be playing in 40-degree weather for probably the first time in his life. I looked at his college game log, and the road games he played outside of Alabama were Vanderbilt, Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee, LSU, South Carolina, Texas A&M, Mississippi State. All those venues are pretty warm. So this is probably the coldest game he's ever been a part of. And I think he's going to struggle in the altitude. Has he ever been in altitude before? I don't know. I don't know how tall the mountains in Hawaii are. But I think this is going to be a tough one for him, especially against the Broncos defense that's 5th ranked in coverage defense. And they have a decent pass rush, 22 sacks. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a tough one for him. Give me Denver at home.
I was looking for – there's some wild Drew Lock stat that I saw.
Drew Lock stinks.
He's historically bad.
Hey, side note about the Dolphins, that game against the Chargers looked aesthetically cool. Like
yes.
The uniforms that made for a good it
was also a good game.
It jumped off the screen when I turned it on.
Dolphins might be good too, by the way. It's nuts.
I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying this.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
Growing pains for Tua Tagovailoa. That's all I'm saying.
By the way, like we sat there and criticized or questioned that move to go to Tua. They're 3-0 since
I remember, I'm from Los Angeles when I moved to Boston, and the first time I was playing catch in the winter, and it wasn't even 30 degrees. It was probably 40 degrees. My hands were just frozen. It's hard for a warm weather boy.
Yeah, you get used to it though. Now you're trying to assemble pickup games once a year.
Yeah, and that still never happened. Play football with me.
You and Tua, one and the same. Give me Tennessee getting 6.5 points at Baltimore. This is going to sound like feel like a very much overreaction or whatever to what happened to Baltimore on Sunday night, but there are issues with the Ravens right now. Historically, or specifically injuries. Ronnie Stanley already out for the year on the offensive line. They lost Nick Boyle. They're down at guard as well. Phillips, he's got an ankle injury. Calais Campbell on the defensive side, we don't know if he'll be back. He's questionable for Sunday. He's got a calf injury. The one injury that might really hurt them if he can't play Sunday is nose guard Brandon Williams. Hurt his ankle against the Patriots. Early in that game, I think he had like 5 snaps. Patriots ran for 173 yards on 39 carries. Running the ball nearly 40 times tells me that they knew that they could do it and knew the Ravens could do nothing about it. And we are, by the way, we are entering Derrick Henry season. this is the time where he came alive last year. From weeks 10 to the rest of the year, he averaged 149 yards per game, 6.5 yards per carry. In those same games, Ryan Tannehill, 16 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Tennessee went 5-2 down the stretch. One of those losses came without Henry. I think this is a good spot for them to run him all over the Ravens. And then when the Ravens start getting wise to that, we see that play action pass game that we've talked about so much come in. So I think Tennessee's pretty live here on the road against Baltimore.
Pretty much what happened last year in the
I was
playoffs.
going to say, that's the thing. I am on the wrong side of revenge here. But
No, I agree with you, though. I agree with your pick.
Extra rest too. I mean,
that is the also, yes, they played
Derrick
Thursday
Henry's
night.
legs are never going to be fresher.
Yep, they're looking to bounce back. So I like the Titans here. That's another good game. Some good games this week. So.
Yeah, that was on the when we toss around which games we're going to talk about.
Yep.
That was a bubble team. That was a bubble game right there.
So I sneaked it in here at the end. So, all right, you guys got anything else? We kind of went long today, so.
Nah, we'll talk about Theo Epstein at a later date.
Yeah, it sounds like, by the way, it sounds like he's just taking time off to hang out with his family, which we'll see how long it takes for him to get sick of his family.
All right. Bye.
All right, well, we'll be back next week. Yeah, I was gonna wish you guys a happy Thanksgiving, but we will reconvene one more time before the holiday. So we'll pass along our best. We'll go around the table and give thanks for all that we have to give thanks for in this wonderful year that is 2020.
We'll draw our hand turkeys this weekend in anticipation for next week.
Correct. That's Ricky, Andre. I'm Mike. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week.